There we go. We're actually on Mem Aleph Amud Bet at the Mishnah. Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag. It's about a quarter of the way down the page. And we start a new Mishnah for a new Zman. A little bit of housekeeping before we get underway. There will be a shiur consistently until the middle of May, and then there will be a week that I'll be missing. And there will probably be one I'll be missing in, or two, in fact, in June. And who knows what's going to happen in July. But let's go as much as we can.
As Mincha gets later and later.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That was the other piece. Shortly, thank you. Shortly, we'll be switching the shiur to before Mincha. So say by the time Mincha gets to like 7:50, I can only do 7:45. It's just too tight. 7:50 and onward, 5:0 and onward. That's when the switch is going to be to 7 o'clock. Everyone with me? You understand? So that we could, because then Mincha is going to end like 35. And
so far, this is all English. I can handle.
Okay, good. All right. So we're up to the Mishnah Mem Aleph Amud Bet. Yom Tov Harishon Shel Chag Shechal להיות b'Shabbat. Kol ha'am molichin ulevein lebeit hakneset. When the first day of Sukkot falls out on Shabbat, it's a Friday night. Everyone brings their lulav to the Beit Knesset and leaves it there. L'macharat, the next day, mashkim nebayin kol echad be'echad makir et shalov and otlo. The next day, everyone comes to Shul early, and everyone looks, and they process the fact that they found their own Daled Minim set, and they take it. Why? Because the Chachamim teach us, on the first day of Yom Tov, a person cannot be Yotzei, the mitzvah of Daled Minim, unless they own their own set. How do they own it? They owned it before Shabbos, and they put it there. So this is a Mishnah which is telling us something about the use of Shul, because it says Beit Knesset. I want you to pause right here before we move even one step further and look over to Mem Bet Amud Bet. Tonight we're starting a new parak, even though we're not yet at the new parak. Don't worry, we're not really. It's a fake out. The first Mishnah in the fourth parak begins Lulav Arav Ashisha V'Shiva. We don't have time to learn the whole thing right now. But if you see, there's parentheses in the middle of the Mishnah. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the description here is basically our description, meaning how does it happen that the mitzvah of lulav, how does it work out that it could be 7 days, 6 days, the whole discussion. Lulav Arav is Shisha V'Shiva. Sometimes it's 6 days, sometimes it's 7 days. So it describes here. We don't need the word b'Shabbat. It starts after Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag Shechal להיות b'Shabbat Molichin Ulevein Lehar Habayit. Hachazanin Mekavlim Mehen V'Sodrinot Magabre Itztaba V'Zkenim Menichin Etchelahen Balishka. Right? You understand what's happening here? The Mishnah is describing the bringing of the lulavim and etrogim before Shabbat to the Har Habayit. Mm-hmm. Our Mishnah is to the Beit Knesset. This Mishnah down here is to the Har Habayit. Two different locations and with differences aplenty that we will see more of when we get to that paragraph. Just sort of previewing it. The fact that the Mishnah mentioned Beit Knesset, that's interesting. Now we know that today, we don't follow this Mishnah either, right?
We bring it on Sunday.
Right. We don't have a first day of Shabbat override. Remember how the halacha is from the Torah's perspective. Only on the first day is it a mitzvah all over Eretz Yisrael, including what's called the Medina and the Gvulin, areas outside of the precincts of Yerushalayim, outside of the Har Habayit and outside of Yerushalayim, depending on whether you follow Shita the Rambam or not, but not in the Beit HaMikdash. Everywhere takes the first day. And as far as the Torah is concerned, that even obtains if Shabbat is the first day of Sukkot, everyone takes a little of an etrog. That seems to be what the Torah is saying. The Torah goes on to say that Usmachtim Fnei Hashem Elokechem Shivat Yamim. You will rejoice before God for 7 days. From here, Chazal understand that the mitzvah of lulav, by which I mean the Daled Minim, in the Beit HaMikdash is a 7-day mitzvah. But when you're not in the Beit HaMikdash, you're not Lifnei Hashem. You don't have a 7-day mitzvah. And the rest of Sukkot, when the Beit HaMikdash is standing, there is no mitzvah of Daled Minim. Remember, when the Churban happened, we saw that previously, Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai was mataken all 7 days. We're going to take the Lulav and the Etrog, remember? All 7 days, because there is no Harabait and not Harabait. There's just wherever you are. At the same time, however, there's another factor, and that factor is, and Art was alluding to it, Gzeira Derabba, and that is that Chachamim were concerned people will carry the Lulav in the public domain, Daled Amot, you're not allowed to do that, and therefore several mitzvot, 3 mitzvot that are by Torah law, well, 2 of them at least, by Torah law, sound like you could have made an argument that an aseh is dochel lo taseh, it's the mitzvah of the time, and therefore you should do it even if it's on Shabbat. Case in point, Brit Milah still has that override over Yom Hashmini Yimol Basar or Lato, but 3 mitzvot, 2 biblical and 1 rabbinic, or at least Midivrei Sofrim, that are suspended if they fall out on Shabbos. Lulav is 1, Shofar is another, and Megillah. We're worried Megillah Esther. We're worried that since they are all associated with mitzvah, you'd be excited, you're going to carry them. What's the difference between those things and the world of Brit Milah? Taka, good question. Not for today. Not for today. But there's a discussion that's at least to be had.
Doing the Brit Milah,
yeah,
and carrying the tools that are needed,
right,
to do are 2 different things.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but you see, good point. Doing the bris, carrying the tools, 2 separate things. And look what it says here in our Mishnah. If Yom Tov Rishon of Sukkot falls out on Shabbat, so you bring the lulav to Shul on Friday,
right,
and you leave it there. We do this all the time. If Tisha B'Av is Motzei Shabbat, remind people, right? Bring your shoes before Shabbos. Can't wear them on Shabbos. Can't carry them. That would be Achana for everybody. Yeah. So you bring it before, etc. Just leave it there. If there wasn't an error for some reason, God forbid, so bring your chumash before. Bring your siddur before, assuming the shul doesn't have these things. You can leave your talis or wear your talis, but okay, that's not a good example. You can wear it. And the next day they come, and everyone's going to knows which one is theirs, and they take it because the Chamim explained you have to have it on that day. We've learned this already a number of times. And the rest of Yom Tov, Ushayim Orachag, Adam Yotzei Deichavatab Lulav Shachavero. What do we Shayim Orachag? What's Shayim Orachag? This Mishnah clearly was enacted, was written in light of the Takana of Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. Remember, because Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said, where did he say it? It's on the last Mishnah, in fact. Like, you see why this Mishnah is connected to the previous one?
Yeah.
After the Takana was made, but before the Gzeira Derabba, here's what people did. On the first day, everyone agrees it's Midoraita, you have to own it. On Shabbos, what are you going to do? You don't own it if you're borrowing from someone else. You can't do that. And we don't have Gzeira Derabba yet, it's not mentioned. So you keep it in the shul, you're going to do the mitzvah of Daled Minim, right? Today, even if a person told me they left in the shul in advance, first day, Rabbi, how could I miss? There's nothing to talk about. The Gzeira Derabba is already is operative. So that's now Minig Yisrael. You cannot change it. But other days of Yom Tov, 2 through 7, you can borrow the lulav from someone else, and you be yotze with the lulav of someone else.
Lulav before Shabbos, and
someone else had it, just borrow from them.
You can.
On days 2 through 7.
No. But I'm saying on day 1. So you're
You need to be sunk. If you got the shul and you had not brought, right, you could not. That's what the mission seems to be saying. Right. Question from Mark. Yeah, in person. 1 second.
I've done this Mishnah before, but yet all of a sudden I'm looking at this Rishon part of the Mishnah and going, what is the big chiddush here? I mean, we would know that you would bring, if you were going to do the mitzvah lulav on first day that falls on Shabbos, we would have to do something about the lulaving before. And we know that we take your own. So we've already learned that, right? So is Rashi says docha mitzvah lulav b'Shabbos. So is that really the issue?
To docha mitzvah lulav Shabbat, right? B'yom tov rishon
levado. So really what the Mishnah is going to say is, by the way, we wouldn't have expected to take the lulavim on the first day of Shabbos, but at the time of the Gemara, they did that, right? Trying to see what sort of
what's the Havamina? What would I have thought otherwise?
Yeah, I thought otherwise.
All right, I'll build a case. Mark is asking, okay, what's the big chiddush over here? Okay, you can't carry, it's Shabbos, and yet there's a mitzvah that overrides Shabbos.
What here that's new? That's what I'm
so what's the Havamina? And we're going to see. I have a theory about this, which is probably, I didn't make it up. I'm sure I learned it from someone else, but yeah, well, whatever. But the Havamina is the whole mitzvah, unlike Shofar, unlike Megillah, the whole mitzvah of the Daled Minim is actually to carry it. The mitzvah is to pick it up.
Ah.
So if mitzvah is to carry it, look, I'm doing the mitzvah now. And I'm doing the mitzvah now. And I'm doing the mitzvah now. One hand, two hands, doesn't matter. And if I'm doing the mitzvah and the mitzvah overrides Shabbos, so mitzvah dochalot, and mitzvah bri milah is not that way because it's not about carrying things. The carrying is incidental, but the whole point here is the carrying. And as we will see in the Gemara, which we will not get to tonight, because I got to hold over something juicy for next time, but we'll see that people loved carrying around their lulav and etrogim the whole day. Because it was it's like the more matzah you eat according to the Gra. We saw this at the Nila Chag was mentioning. He thinks a mitzvah kiyumit. Eat more and more and more. Stuff yourself. Who cares about the consequences? Just keep eating. It's all good because it's a mitzvah. Every bite you eat, every moment you're sitting in the sukkah, it's an extra mitzvah. So every moment you're holding the lulav and etrog. Well, we already hold, the agbe, nafak be. We saw that already when you lift it. You are yodse the mitzvah, remember? But then we said there's nanuin, and we're going to see further along, right here on this page, 41b, that there are a lot of people who, it was like this big mila to carry around all day. So havamina, maybe if I carry it around, I'm not violating anything. That's actually the performance of the mitzvah. That also explains the seifa of this Mishnah. Keep going in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yosei Omer, Yontav Harishin Shachak Shechal Yot B'Shabbat, V'Shachach, V'Hotziat HaLulav L'Reshut HaRabim, Pater. Mipnei shehotzio bir reshut. Oh, Pater. It's not permitted, but Pater from what? Look at Rashi. Rashi, right? Shehotzio bir reshut. What is reshut? Bir reshut mitzvah. With the permission, the license of a mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? Ulekachtem lachem bayom harishon, etc., etc. Right? So shayatar mitzvah. You were so concerned. I'm so excited. So concerned about the mitzvah. Umechashe v'asuk umemar lasota. I'm excited. I'm thinking about it. I'm busy with it. I'm rushing to do it. Because remember, part of the mitzvah we said was also the nanuim, not a primary mitzvah, but the hallel with the nanu. We saw that, right? Remember 38b, the Tosfot there, right? So mitochach ta'a, you made a mistake. V'shachach shehu Shabbat. I made a mistake. I forgot that it's Shabbos. V'kasava Rabbi Yossi ta'a b'dvar mitzvah v'shagag b'dvar karet patur mikorban. Francie had the right question. Patur from what? You're patur from a korban. It's not telling you can do it, but hold on. That's a total non sequitur. What's Rabbi Yossi telling us? By the way, if you've forgotten you're carrying it. Because Havamina, Mark, I understand why I'm plugging it in, not to the Resha as well. The first part of it. There's a good Havamina that you can carry this thing. Because that's the whole mitzvah. Carry, take it. Understand?
Because it says
so once you took it in your hand, so you're still carrying it. I didn't put it down. I didn't stop doing the mitzvah. Sustained. Okay. So again, and you'll see later on, you see the Anshe Yerushalayim, these people carrying the mitzvah, holding Lulav and Etrog all day long. So there's a Havamina here. And Rabbi Yossi is even saying, like, if you did that, by the by, that's not. I mean, if you did that, you're pater from a korban. I mean, today, not a huge nafkamina, unless you're on a madrega, you're keeping score. There were Tanoim who kept score, right? That when the base of Mikdash should be rebuilt, or Shmuel ben Elisha had a little pinkas, and others also had pinkas, like they wrote down when the base of Mikdash should be rebuilt, I'm going to bring a korban. They thought it was going to be 2 years from then, a year from then, 6 months. It's going to come, but it didn't happen that way. Today, again, this whole mission is kind of like, but we have Gzera D'Rabba. He says you don't carry the Lulav, Shabbos, even if it's the first day. What happened to biblical mitzvah? Yeah, but on the standing other side of it. No, Gzera D'Rabba is not here. I'm telling you, I'm skipping ahead in Jewish history. We'll get there. We're not up to that. But the point is, this Mishnah presupposes that actually you do the mitzvah of Lulav on Shabbat. You just can't carry it to Shul. And if you did,
wait, you just
Lo Sofa Olam. I mean, it's bad, but it's not.
Can you still use it then?
Yeah. Sounds that way.
You just said something that sparked another question, which is
Mark question again. Hold on.
Sorry.
You don't have to apologize. The whole
You
thing's
said-
about discussion.
You said
Reading and understanding, you
said-
can do on a video. You
you
don't
said-
need to see
you
the
said
angle.
it-
This
you
was
said
a
you talked
discussion
about
together.
carrying. And
Yeah.
where does the Torah define the mitzvah of lulav as actual carrying? I know that's what you said.
It's taking it.
Taking it. That's not carrying.
Well, holding it.
Okay, but I don't want to get too technical,
Yeah.
but that's, I think, where you were driving at here, right?
Yeah.
Which is, what does taking it mean?
How long is taking it? We
Right.
Lamaisa, we say it's
Right.
picking up and you're done.
Okay,
Now, this
so
is
that-
all not mine. The Kapot Tamarim, aptly named Kapot Tamarim, he says that the point is Natilat Lulav is Doche Shabbat, but not Hotzaat Lulav L'Reshut Harabim. And that's what's being clarified here.
Because
right?
if the mitzvah was only just waving, then you should be able to do it on Shabbat. without a problem.
Right.
I mean, you knock it off, right?
Yeah, and that's what
Right,
that's the
right.
ratio here.
Right.
It so happens that later on it came with the Gzar Rabbah and said, we're not going to be doing this.
All of these mitzvahs where there's a gezerah, whether it's shofar or lulav or megillah, there's no issur in the performance of the actual mitzvah. Chachamim were
Yeah.
afraid that in order to
Right,
get
I
there, you
understand.
would bring it.
Yeah. And therefore, b'sheval taisa, Chachamim said, don't do this mitzvah on this
Okay.
day. That's a huge chiddush, but that's the kol Chachamim. B'sheval tasa, they can be oker halacha. So, and that's what happened.
Especially since Rishut HaRabbi was so rare to begin with. It's really
Yeah.
far-fetched.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it's rare.
But I
That's
thought
right.
by
Yeah.
shofar, it says Shema Yitaka. So, but on Shabbos, that there's an issue of you can't. Yes, you can't
No,
carry
not
it.
Shema.
But you make-
Shema.
But you
No,
make-
Shema Yoli Chenu Dalad Amad B'Shut Rabin. That's the Shema Yavi Renu. Daled
Somehow,
Amud B'Shut
you know,
Rabin.
in terms of the actual, I thought the Mishnah Berurah says that you can act.
It's a chachma, not a malacha. Yeah. So yeah,
But it's not the fact of on taking a shofar.
we maintain that it's muktzah. We maintain that you can't carry it
For that reason,
because you can't take it in Rishut Rabin.
right?
It's not because someone might learn it. That's actually not a malacha. The malacha is hotzah, and we tell people you're not to carry it. That's shofar. That's lulav. That's megillah.
I mean,
Now the Aruch LaNer pointed something else out in this Mishnah, and that is that very strangely it says here in the Mishnah, "Mipnei she'amru chachamim ein adam yotzei yedecho tabiyom tavarishon b'lulav shalchavero." Chachamim said it. I thought the Torah said din deoraita
Yeah,
that it's lachem. Remember? So the Aruch LaNer says no, it's true, but even though obviously the Mishnah Bali Masorah knew that, it used the same language as the Seifa because it's going to say about Shari Marachag that you can use that the daled minim of your friend. You can borrow it, meaning there's no takana of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai for the rest of the days of so I say it differently. Excuse me. The takana of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that you should now take the lulav and etrog all 7 days, regardless of where you live, after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. That was the last Mishnah. Don't think that the fact that he expanded the frequency of the performance of the mitzvah, that it means therefore the din of lachem was also drawn into days 2 through 7. Rather, that's situated exclusively on day 1. The only thing Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai multiplied out, he says not just going to be day 1, it's going to be everywhere. That's the taking of the lulav and the etrog, right? By the by, in the Beit HaMikdash, Usmach Mufnei Hashem, Shivat Yamim. It's not clear to me there's a din lachem after day 1 either, because Lukachtem lachem by Yom Harishon. So other days in the Mikdash stands to reason you could have used someone else's lulav, just borrowed it from them, because okay. So it's just for consideration. Now let's look at the Gemara.
We also hold lachem right on Yom Tov Sheni, right?
We do.
The second day of Sukkot in Chutz La'aretz, we still hold lachem because it's we're mimicking Yom Rishon. Isn't that true?
Actually not.
No.
No. Even though it's true that it's the Sveikat Yoma, we do not maintain the din of lachem on the second day.
Really?
And even though we make a shechianu, by the way, if the first day of Sukkot is Shabbat, Art's asking, then isn't the second day, which is Sunday, Sveikat Yoma, isn't that possibly the first day and that would be makbid and din lachem? But the basic answer is no, it's not.
It's not.
Which is weird, but that's how it goes. Again,
But so when
on the second day, it's the first time you do the
so
mitzvah.
when the first day is Shabbos, lachem doesn't apply at all. You say.
It applies on Shabbos, but it
Yeah,
doesn't mean
okay.
anything. Yeah, don't do anything with it. By the by, I should also mention that the Sefer Dikduke Sofrim says that in their version of the Mishnah, there's a mistake in our version of the Gemara. It should, or Mishnah rather, it should not, the words Amru Chachamim, Ke'inyan Zeh, whatever it is, they were the Amru Chachamim in the Mishnah. We have here the words Amru. Where am I? I lost it already. It doesn't say Mipnei Shamar Chachamim. It just Mipnei She'ein Adam Yotze. That doesn't have the two words Amru Chachamim. They just said there's nothing wrong with the manuscript. It was copied over the wrong way. Which is another way to solve the problem. Aruch LaNer had his way, and the Sefer Dikduke Sofrim had another way. Gemara, Menani Mili. How do we know this to be true? Well, whatever. Menani Mili. What's the source of this? Right? Where did it come from? The Tana Rabbanan, as we learned this many times. Ulekachtem. Shetehei lekich b'yad kol echad be'echad. Right? Lachem misha lachem. So 2 things. Right? that lakachtem means it should be the taking in the hand of each and every individual, and lachem lahotzi rashal v'ragazul. Right? Mikan amru chachamim ein adam yotzi lechuvato b'yom tov shel chag v'lavo shel chaver. Again, according to the Kikdei Sofrim, that's just a mistake. Shouldn't say those words. But according to the Aruch Laner, yeah, it's there for the purpose of the syntax. Yeah, Eli and Cain, not nulo b'matana, unless he gave it to him as a gift. So let me pause here. Let's look up at Tosfot. Rashi. How do you know? What are the words that tell you that you're not be yotzi with your friend? Lachem mishalachem mashma. Right? That's lachem sounds like that's what it means. Mishalachem meaning belonging to you. Tosfot. Ulakachtem shtei lekichel chol echad beechad midoloktiv vilakachta lashon yachid, but rather ulakachtem. And then Tosfot would say, the Gabi Sukka lotzarich kra. For Sukka, we don't need a pasuk. The haktiv kol ha'ezrach, because it says there kol ha'ezrach b'seli shuba sukkot. So I was scratching my head when I first saw this because I was thinking, really? How about basukot teshvu shiva? I mean, that's also plural. That would have been a better example. Would you go with kol ha'ezrach? I was confused by this. Right? You understand? You understand the issue? Okay, but this is a question that I had. But I found in a footnote in the Matifta Gemaras, they pointed out that there is a pasuk Chag HaSukkot Ta'aseh Lecha Shiva Yamin, and that's in the singular. And that Rabbi Eliezer, who we learned previously was on Chav Zayin, is that these words Chag HaSukkot Ta'aseh Lecha means that you have to be in your own sukkah and you can't share with other people. Remember? And then the Gemara had concluded there. Everyone could sit in the same co-owned sukkah, basically, and keep taking turns. Remember? That's why Tosfot went with this example. I didn't say basukot teshvu. In other words, what Tosfot are responding to is you might have wanted to make an argument like Rabbi Eliezer did. Therefore, the answer is it says ulakachtem lachem, and that's what the Gemara is teaching here. Ulakachtem means it's already in the plural. There's no singular addition of taking the daled minim because the singular mention of the Daled Minim as such in the Torah is in chapter 23 of Sefer Vayikra and Perek Chav Gimel. That's it. Parshat Emor. Ergo, that's the only source. Ulakachtem lachem, and that's what's being quoted here. Ulakachtem should be lakichlo echad ve'echad. Doesn't say v'lakachta. By the by, the Meiri points out that the Lulav, since the Lulav's function is to serve as ritzui for water everywhere, it's to right, as a form of finding favor from Hashem, we're lifting it up, we're doing this mitzvah. There's a havamina that maybe the Beit Din represents all the people, and Mali, one person, or all the people take it, or Mali, the Beit Din representing all of the people take it, because after all, it's for water, it's for crops for the whole world. So Kamash Malan, no, every individual takes it in their hand, right? And it's not because of the idea that of the Havamina that you could say that one can be motzi their friend, right? Because normally we wouldn't say for a mitzvah gufanit, tefillin, put on tefillin for me today. No, it's a mitzvah with your goof, right? Matzah, you eat the matzah, you have me in mind. Can't do that. So why would you think with the lulav? Because the point is the lulav is actually for the point, the performance of it is for ritzui. So maybe since it's like it has a prayerful dimension and you're hopeful of something for everyone, maybe one person can represent other people. Kamash Malan, says the Meiri. That's what the Gemara is going out of its way to tell you the drasha, which we already knew because, as you know, Gemara is not linear. Stop thinking of it as a linear book. Right? We already knew this. No one just read these words and was like, "Really? I never heard of that before." No, because Lulav Hagazul by Yavesh.
The first Mishnah had lachem mishalchem.
Yeah. So Gemara. The Gemara is commenting. Yeah. But the Gemara is commenting on the expression here that a person can't be yotze with the lulav of their fellow, right? So then it brought it up again. It says, oh, by the way, we already learned the Tana Rabbanan. We already learned it elsewhere. There's another good example of this, which is a great off ramp if I wanted to push the shear away from Sukkah and into Yana Dioma. But if you look up the Gemara in Menachot on Daf Samech Hey, I just talked about this yesterday, in Minchal Maariv. But the Gemara is clearing around usfartem lachem as opposed to v'safarta lecha. What's v'safarta lecha? Parashat Bahar, discussing the mitzvah of Yovel. Yovel is a mitzvah incumbent upon Beit Din. Who counts? The Beit Din counts. There's no Beit Din, there's no count of Yovel. Doesn't exist. Do you keep a blank year? You don't keep a blank year. Machloket Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. The idea of V'safarta Licha in the singular both times teaches us that Yovel is exclusively the provenance of the Beit Din. Usfartem lachem, plural plus plural. That tells every individual needs to be counting and every time. And it's not just, you can't consign it. You can't say that it's part of the Beit Din. Rather, it falls on individuals. And it can't be that one individual is really going to be, that's what we end up learning, that one individual is going to be motzi another individual. And I mentioned that the Mishnah Berurah quotes our favorite subject, Shemei Ke'oneh, and asks, Kiddush, Havdalah, Birchot Hananin, if the person is going to be eating the food, you can be motzi somebody else. How come Sfira not? So that's the machloket back and forth, and basically say, Usfartem lachem. That's how the drasha goes. Plural and plural. Plural that it's not Beit Din, but the populace, and plural to tell us that every individual needs to take it. Kind of like Lekachtem lachem. Okay, so that's as far as that. Now, the next words in the Gemara here, Ella im kain not nulav matana. What do you mean giving it over as a gift? If you give it over to someone as a gift, then it belongs to them. We're going to read forward in the Gemara a beautiful story. We'll have a lot of questions about this beautiful story. I probably don't have all the answers or even most of the answers, but we'll try to at least parse it. And then we're going to see a Tosfot at the top of the page. So, Umasib Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Yehoshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azar. It's like we're at my Seder again. Rabbi Akiva. By the way, not all of them, because Rabban Gamliel, the Yavna, actually lived in Lud. And all these other people seem to have been the traveling companions. Rabbi Yeshua, Elazar ben Azar, Rabbi Akiva. They were with Rabbi Tarfon in Bnei Brak. But this is another story. Not mentioned. And my Rabban Gamliel, for Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azar, Rabbi Akiva, Hayubayin b'sfina. They were on a ship. V'lohaya Lulav, El Rabban Gamliel, Bilvad.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so they're on a ship. It's Yontif, it's Sukkos, and only Rabban Gamliel has the Lulav. Shalakha be'elav zuz. He bought it for 1,000 zuz. Not Rabban Gamliel, v'yatzabo. He did it, perform the mitzvah. The notno l'Rabbi Yehoshua b'matana. He gave it to Yeshua with a matana. Not lo Rabbi Yehoshua v'yatzabo. Yeshua picked it up. He performed the mitzvah. The not lo Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah b'matana. He gave it to Elazar ben Azariah with a matana. Not
This is talking about day one.
Yeah, day one. Not Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah v'yatzabo. He gave it to Elazar ben Azariah. He was yotzei. But not Rabbi matana. Rabbi Akiva. Not Rabbi Akiva v'yatzabo. And then what did Rabbi Akiva do? Right back to the beginning. Zero Rabban Gamliel. Lamali lemeimar zero. Why do you have to learn that Rabbi Akiva gave it back to Rabban Gamliel? Milta agav urche kamash malan. We learn here a lesson by the by, which is matana amanat lahachzir, right? Shma matana. The matana that's for the purpose that was given on condition, essentially, that it will be returned. That's a good gift. Kihada Amar Rava, as Rava taught, Heilach etrog zeh amanash tachzireuli. If a person says, "Take this etrog from me," on condition essentially that you will return it to me, not lav yatzabo hechziro yatza. He returned it. He was yotzei. Lo hechziro lo yatza. If he didn't give it back, he's not yotzei. Yeah. Lamali, and then the Gemara this throws in parenthetically, Lamali lameimar shalach be'elav zuz. Why'd you throw in that it's 1,000 zuz, how much it cost them? Lo diacha kama mitzvot chavivot aleihem. To teach us how precious mitzvot were to the Tanaim. Of course, a lot of questions here. Questions abound about this little Misa. Why were they in a ship on Sukkos? Where's their Sukkah? Why didn't anyone else take care to have lulav and etrog? Why is Rabban Gamliel giving it out to them with a matana? Why is each person passing it along instead of giving it back to the original person? And then he has to give it out to the other people. Like, why is it a chain? Instead of like Rabban Gamliel gives it, gets it back, gives it, gets it back. But it's not what happened. A, B, C, D, and back to A. Why? Right? And this is very, very strange. It's a very strange circumstance that we're encountering. And we're kind of wondering, like, what exactly is this about, right? It's mystifying on so many levels. And mystifying on so many levels. And before you ask me any more questions, one second, if I can find it. Having a memory block. I should remember this. So I'm a little upset with myself. Must be Chav Zayin. You know I'm looking for another story, right? Remember the story? Oh no, here it is. It's page 23. My bad. Page 23. Remember? There's this story here. Yeah. Gemara. The Gemara has a little story, beautiful story, right? Remember the Mishnah is telling us about you make a sukkah on top of among other things, a Rosh Hasfina. The Gemara in 23a. Mani matnitin Rabbi Kiva. The Tanya ha'osis sukkah to Rosh Hasfina. Rabbi Gamliel posel. Rabbi Kiva machshir. Ma'aseh b'Rabban Gamliel. Rabbi Akiva. Shayubayin b'Sfina. Amad Rabbi Akiva va'asa sukkah Rosh Hasfina. L'machar nashva ruach va'akarta. Amar Rabbi Gamliel Akiva. Heichan sukkatcha. Where's your sukkah? Blew down. Now, were they making multiple trips on sukkahs? Is it the same sukkahs? I have no idea. Why are they on a ship? Where could they possibly have been going or coming from? So as you know, we have records about this, and I'm not doing a history lesson over here, but it's a fascinating study. Various Tanai made trips to Rome to advocate for the Jewish people, various things. But the idea that like these Chacham are on some kind of like on a ship and like traveling like the greatest Rabban, it's like the all-stars, Lahavdol Fe'avdal, all got on a ship and like, we're going away for Yontif, we're on a cruise, we'll see you after. No such thing. They were going obviously for mitzvah purpose. Their family's not with them, they're by themselves, and nobody has provisions. One guy, the Nasi, Rabbi Gamliel. But just like the whole thing. Then he's giving it out. Then it's a matana ahach. It has to be the first day. If it's any other day, you could borrow.
So I misread this when I was looking at it, because I didn't think someone who got something as a gift could re-gift. I thought it had to go back to Gamliel. I know, it doesn't say that.
No.
Yeah, that's where I sort of.
Rabbi Gamliel, to be Shul, to Elazar ben Azar, to be
Right,
Kiva, and Rabbi
meaning-
Kiva sends it right back to the beginning.
Right.
But when Rabbi Gamliel gave it, he
That's
gave it
how
as a
he did it.
matana ahach. It sounds like he gave it to him that way. He finished, right? And in fact, he just gave it to him with a matana. And Rava points out, if you give your etrog to somebody, really etrog lulav, it means dal minim, and you say, I'm giving it to you, matana manat lahachzir, so then you have to get it back after. And if the guy gives it back, then the person who got it as a gift fulfills the mitzvah. But if they refuse to give it back, Rava says,
Then
he doesn't fulfill his mitzvah.
because the
It's like-
matana never was a matana.
Yeah, the matana was not really a matana. It's weird, but that's actually Allah Psuka, Adiyam Azeh.
Is the first matana, the matana here,
Matana, yeah, from
Was-
Gamliel to Beshua.
right? So was that given just stam, or was that given?
Matana.
It was just a pure gift.
I
There
don't
was
know.
nothing that said you had to return.
Based on what Rabbi Akiva did, it sounds like that we're learning the point is you have to give it back. Lama lila meim. You see, remember at the end,
Then why?
right? Lama
so
lila
why-
meim hech zero milta the agav urche kamash malan. Why did it mention hech zero that he gave it back? Why is that significant in the story? So the Gemara says milta agav urche kamash. It's teaching us a by the by, an extra halacha, which is that a matana al hachzir shma matana. It's actually a gift. And what does that mean? It's actually a gift. As long as there's a t'nai, you can give it back. Now, if you didn't make it tonight, let's say you just gifted it to someone completely. You could do that. But let's say you need it again the next day.
Well,
So some part of the story seems to be
yeah,
missing, maybe.
Because
Yeah,
otherwise, the
Yeah.
first gift or the first three gifts.
yeah. Seem like they're out and out gifts.
Right.
Yeah, that's where Rashi comes in. And that's what Rashi's filling in.
Well, not only that, if the first three were out and out gifts, then the gift from the third one to the fourth one had nothing to do about lahachzir.
Right,
to the
right,
first one.
Right, exactly. So look at Rashi. That's why Rashi, Rabba and Shel Yisrael, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, Lama li lameimar hech zero.
Yeah.
Okay, right after the Gimel Mem from the Gemara, we had, right. Okay, ma'anu lemeidin michazarazu, the itzrich tanul mitnaya b'matnitin. What exactly are we learning from this return that we have to have it taught to us, here in the text that we're looking at in front of us? Like, why did we need that? That's his question. Hakamash malan, we learned from this, the Rabban Gamliel amanat shech ziruhu lo natnu lahem. We must be learning from this, and the fact that Akiva gave it back, that the initial gift, though the story does not recount it that way, that Rabban Gamliel gave it to them, almanat shiachziruhu lo, not nulahem. That's how I gave it to them. Va'afilu hachi havya matana ad sheyatzu bo. And nonetheless, it was considered a good gift until they were yotze with it, and then they had to transfer it to someone, and eventually got back to Rabban Gamliel.
In other words, they're saying the first gift was almanat lahachzir, but almanat lahachzir eventually. not
Exactly.
necessarily direct.
To repeat what Art just said very
That's how
beautifully,
Tom
the
gave it
first
back to
time he
him.
gave it, when he gave it to Rabbi Yeshua, it was already almanat lahachzir, but not necessarily immediately. It's that eventually I need to get it back. Eventually. Question is, what does eventually mean? In 5 years? Not a mitzvah anymore. So it has to be before he needs to use it again. Look at Tosfot. Elohim kein natan lo b'matana.
He also gave it to him for the purpose of doing the mitzvah and his passing it on. to
Okay,
others.
this is going to be a big subject of debate. I'm glad you raised it. And if we get from that lucky in the next 7 minutes, that's what these 2 pages are about. Did he give it to him for the purpose of doing a mitzvah, or did he give it to him and say, I'm giving it to you, but I want it back before I need it again? And the difference between these 2 things might be, how much control does the recipient have to do what he wants with it? Or to say it differently, is there any formal process of return of the Lulav bundle back to the original owner? Or is the act of being Yotze the return? That's the debate. We're going to see it inside in a minute.
I don't understand. Well, that's.
Well, let's see it. Let's see it. Look with me at Tosfot. First of all, Tosfot. Ella in Cain, Natan lo b'matana. Uve edrak hashutafi nami lo nafik. Kidemuchach b'shili ne yesh nochlin. Gabi achin shekanu edrak b'tfisat habayit. V'lo chashiv shalo. Kevan de'ein miyuchad shalo ella keshol have. Ve'eno yotze bo. A big mouthful. There are several brothers. Their father passes away. He leaves them money for an estate. They do not have time to divvy up the money to say, you get this much, you get this much. From the estate, someone goes out and in the name of the estate purchases an etrog and brings it home and says, this etrog was the etrog our father would have used. He passed away. Let's all be partners in it. That's not going to work. Why? Because no individual owns it at the moment they pick it up, but rather it was amorphous at the time that it was purchased, and it sounds like they all have a chelek in it. But before you ask me the question that I know is on your mind, look at the next part of Tosfot where you get an amazing piece of the history of halacha. And the fact that there is a minhag, that the whole congregation buys one etrog. Everyone pays membership dues. The gabbai is sent to the store. They buy one etrog. Can you imagine, Ira? Yeah, that's pressure, no? You got to pick the right lulav and etrog. You got to stand there for 2 hours.
It happens all the time.
But that was in the Middle Ages all the time.
Yeah.
To get a citron, the right kind of citron, an etrog that came, that was grown the right way from Italy, from wherever, from Morocco, from Egypt, from Eretz Yisrael, the best, the muvcha from them all. It was a big deal. They had one for the community. That's a big deal. So they would buy it all b'shutafut. Isn't that the same problem? Milamdin otan shihu kulam noten kol echad echad chelko lechavero al menat lehachzir. They teach everyone to say in advance or to recognize that they are automatically sort of whatever the word is, grandfathered in. I don't know what the technical term is in legal terminology. The assumption, legal assumption is, and I'm part of this, it's a co-op, I bought into it. The assumption is when I hold it, everyone has gifted it to me. When I put it back, I've gifted it back to everyone else. And what do we, by the way, we do this. There are 5 sets the shul buys at least each year. We put them out in the minyanim. We say, it doesn't have dalam minim. Whoever can take it. How could they take it on the first day? It doesn't belong to them. You're a member of the shul. You paid something in for dues, $10, something. So now you're picking it up. At the moment you're lifting it up, the assumption is everybody accepts. Now you'll tell me, I never heard of that before. Look at the next line. V'yesh lismoch dekeven dekanu al menat latzeit bo ve'af agav shlo pirshu stama demiltik ilu pirshu dami keven de beinin acher ein yichol latzeit bo. So he says, okay, and we can be somech that the fact that it was purchased, i.e. by the community for this purpose to be Yotze, even though no one said explicitly, we're gonna, they don't have anyone like Mechirat Chametz, the Harsha, the authorization, the rabbi can say, everyone sign a little Harsha. If someone doesn't have Dalminim, they pick up, the Dalminim, I give them permission to have it. No, we don't require that. The assumption is, right? The umdana is, everyone assumes, even you didn't stammer the milta, is as if they had said it, and because otherwise there's no way to be Yotze. Because there's going to be someone in the community who didn't remember, who didn't have it in mind.
There's the same principles involved in putting on the shul's talis. The talis also.
Yeah, the talis with regard to the bracha. Yes.
The talis also has to be.
Yeah, a talit she'ula, you don't make a bracha on a talit she'ula, but a talit that belongs to the congregation, the assumption is that you can make a bracha for that exact. That's the same kind of idea.
Even if you're visiting a shul?
Even if you're visiting a shul, that's typically what we maintain. Yes, said it's for anybody who comes in.
You only make a bracha on the talis that you're using actually to daven with. If for example,
I understand.
if I walk into a shul to lane and I'm only putting on the shul for the
that's
cover
not
of the
considered
keyboard,
wearing it.
That's not considered using it for the mitzvah. So for that, I wouldn't make a bracha.
Right. Right.
But,
Right.
but it's only if you're using it for a tefillah where you really have the mitzvah to have the talis on.
Right. Now, the Matana Manana Hachzir, the basic idea is that giving back the lulav shows that you fulfilled the condition, and therefore you're Yotze. If you didn't give it back, it shows that you stole it, and therefore you did not fulfill your mitzvah at all. Now, we do not have time tonight, and I wasn't really planning on tonight or next time either, to get all into a very large and involved sugya, because I want to make a little bit of headway, because I see it's like after Pesach already, and like going to make a little bit of headway. And we spent a long time like Shemei Ke'oneh and over La Siyata, and these are important sugyas. It's a whole sugya here about Tanai. Tanai Kafel, how does a Tanai work? When does Tanai work? So that's Tosfot, the rest of the page here. But I'll just mention to you that the Tosfot Harid and the Piskei Harid, it mentions that what does this lachem mean? Like when the person gives you the matanah and al-hafzir and you have it, what would happen if something happened to the dalad minim? They got destroyed. They don't exist anymore. So he holds that the makabel is not chayav to give it back to the bailim because it's not really a matzav of a shoel. A shoel is I borrowed something. It is not mine. I'm 100% responsible. A matanah means the guy gave it to me, and it's actually at that time, it's mine. That's what lachem means. So if something were to happen to it, I wouldn't have to give it back to him, basically. There's another question of various other post-game entertainment. You don't have to give him the money, to give him anything. And let's say you lifted up the lulav in the etrog and you couldn't give it back to him now for some reason. Were you not yotze the mitzvah? These are all different shilas that are coming up about this this topic. What we'll have to pick up next time, because it's 9 o'clock. Unfortunately, I still have calls I still have to make tonight. And it's Larry's point that he brought up. So we'll begin with this next time. I'll just frame the question. We'll move from there. When you have matana amanat lahachzir, is it a kinyan olam? Meaning it does not go back, does not revert automatically to the original owner unless the Rabbi Akiva in the story physically gives it back to the Rabban Gamliel, or is it really only belonging to the Mekabel for as long as he needs it for the Dvar Mitzvah, and as soon as he has lifted it up and performed his mitzvah, it automatically reverts to the ownership of the person who gave it to him. What's the practical difference and what's the halacha? You have to come back next time. Can't do everything in one night.
One very, very quick question.
By all means.
Is it mutter to use a lulav for a purpose other than the mitzvah?
That is part of the dialogue that we have to have next time. That's part of the key to this, is how much do I own it? The guy gave it to me, I'm not lahachzir. What leeway do I have with it?
And where the...
Suppose you didn't give it to anybody, it's your own lulav. Can you use it for anything other than the mitzvah?
No, he's asking when you have it, the guy gave it to you, what can you do with it? Is that what you're asking?
Exactly what Art said.
What Art said?
No, that was my question.
Can I use my own lulav and etrog for some other purpose?
Can I chase flies with my own lulav?
In general?
Yeah.
I mean,
on Yom Tov.
it's a dvar mitzvah, so it's not a good idea to be using it for other purposes. You can't use it to sweep your floor or shoe other things. It's a dvar mitzvah.
Okay, that's
No.
whether it's in connection with the matana or in connection with my own lulav. That's what I was asking.
Aha. What I thought you were asking, which I'll bring up next time anyway, can you sell your lulav and etrog to somebody else? For sure you can.
Of course, yeah, you could sell.
So now if I'm the makabel from somebody else and I have a din lachem on the first day, can I sell it to somebody else? It's mine now. There's a Tanai has to go back to the original owner.
Well, wait, I'm sorry. I don't understand the case you just posited.
We have to do this next week. Too
All
much.
right.
Sorry, it's overtime. People are waiting for me. So
Thank you. Well,
okay.